Hi, this is David Asarnow. I am so excited to be here with my good friend for over a decade, Lieutenant Colonel Waldo Waldman. And well, welcome to Get Naked in Business.
I'm ready
Waldo.
to get naked, Dave.
Let's get naked together. And after everyone's watching this, what? We've known each other pretty well for a long time.
Yeah.
But I've been as naked can be with you, emotionally, personally, etc. So, and that's really what it's about. Talking about, the biggest thing that people think is, hey, I've got an idea, I can easily have a business.
Yeah.
You left the military and you went into corporate America, and when you left corporate America to become a speaker, did you just like boom have overnight success like that?
Yeah. It's all overnight success, right?
It is.
So, look, it's not where you've been, it's where you're going. And I think you have to be intentional and strategic about everything you do in your life. I was intentional about joining the military. I wanted to fly. I wanted challenge. I'm naturally a very passionate person. I love competition in sports. What a great place to apply that in a fighter jet in combat with some amazing top-performing men and women. And when I decided to leave the military, which, by the way, was the toughest choice of my life, other than choosing the F-16, which is a whole other story, but we'll talk about perhaps dealing with my claustrophobia and panic attacks in a jet, talk about fear as an entrepreneur. Decided to get out and go into the business world. I knew I needed experience. And so what I did was, if I want to sell myself, if I want to sell something, get into the business world, I need to learn. So I had a few sales jobs before I became an entrepreneur. Worked for a defense contracting firm, and actually an Israeli software company related to the military. It was a great fit. Mm-hmm. And then I was in mergers and acquisitions, commission-only sales. High-level, B2B consulting, UPS, Panasonic, some major clients of mine. And I knew what it was like eventually to make $0 or $30,000 a month because of my relationships, preparation, or lack thereof. But I learned value. I learned follow-up, discipline, having a plan every single day, sticking to it, not giving up, giving presentations. So there was a whole host of things that I learned, built those scars, the battle damage that allowed me to go in and decide to eventually become a speaker and teach those principles.
So let's look at when you made that transition. And you mentioned something that's very interesting. You were 100% commission. And that, by the way, that's something that not many people are willing to do, because whatever you earn is based 100% upon you. Right? So when you become an entrepreneur, it's very much the same thing. So tell me a little bit. I want to talk about the experience in the air. Right. First, I would like to say, so what was that transition like when you finally became a speaker teaching this?
So you've got to, as an entrepreneur, go all in. You can't, they talk about side hustles and this and that. Well, side hustle doesn't work, because I have a saying, if you diffuse, you lose. You've got to be fully committed. All in, jumping off that diving board, facing your fears, and no turning back. So when I decided to become that entrepreneur, I already had a plan. So my side hustle wasn't during the day. I was working 8 to 6, hitting the gym, going to dinner, and then from 9 to midnight or 1 o'clock, I studied the industry. I got a mini PhD in the speaking business. I joined the National Speakers Association. I met other speakers. I networked the heck out of it. I needed to be around folks, and then started to carve my plan while making money during the day, right? Mm-hmm. So that was my side hustle, because there was a sacrifice to that. Not really a big social life. It was tough for just 3 or 4 years straight, and people who are watching this, entrepreneurs, we all get it, right? So by the time I said I'm all in, I had a plan. I knew what was expected. I had the contingencies planned. I had the team. Didn't mean that I didn't mess up, but I was ready to go. When I mean ready to go, I started from the target backwards. Mm-hmm. And this is a great fighter pilot tool that I think we need to learn as entrepreneurs. You ultimately have to be like, what is the end product? What does a sale look like to you from initial client acquisition until money's in the bank? So I said, I got paid. What do I need to do to get paid? Oh, I need a bank account. I need so bank account, checking account. Well, how do you open a check account? You need normally have a corporation or whatever, right? You need to have an initial deposit. Oh, and then how do you get paid? Oh, you need a contract. So contract, invoicing, all those fundamentals. I needed a website. Wow, a business card, a cheesy little business card. I started with something. Don't worry where you're starting now. It's going to change. It's going to evolve. Your brand, your content, your value proposition will evolve. But you've got to start from the target back. And as fighter pilots, if we're going to roll in on a bridge, we're picturing a 30-degree high-angle release bomb. It's called a HARB, 30 degrees, release point between 3,000 and 5,000 feet, et cetera, and I'm releasing here. And then we plan from there backwards. Where's the weather? What's the sun? What's the terrain? What are my weapon systems? What's our rolling point? And we just back up 50 miles away. So I probably should have started with that to draw the analogy, but the bottom line is you've got to carve out the steps, create an action plan to get all those pieces in place, your flight plan, and then release the brakes, push up that throttle, and go maniacal on execution and being the best you possibly can be.
Now, it's interesting. You have that target. You've got your flight plan.
Right.
And one of the things we were talking about before we sat down today was distractions. Distractions disguised as opportunities.
Yes.
And that can happen so easily every single day, especially the word squirrel. Squirrel, looking all over the place.
Yeah.
And I believe, based upon what I've seen, it's one of the reasons why so many people don't hit their goal is because of those distractions. Can you, maybe you want to share that story? I was intrigued.
Yeah, so and the actual quote was coined by my friend Jim Ziegler. He's 70-something years old now, and he's actually in Atlanta, and he's suffering with esophageal cancer.
No.
Talk about a life missile. Amazing entrepreneur, amazingly gifted, was in the car industry and did sales seminars, etc. And also a very philanthropic person, not with his paycheck only, but with his time. Mm-hmm. So Jim Ziegler, when I entered the speaking industry, by the way, and this is important, as I developed this flight plan and became focused, I seeked out mentors, and Jim Ziegler was one of them. He brought me into his house, into his office building. We spent time together. It was absolutely amazing, and I still pay it forward today to him. I called him last night, wished him a happy birthday. His birthday was yesterday as well. Just amazing. And I want entrepreneurs to think about that, because we can't do it on our own. That's my New York Times bestseller, Never Fly Solo. One of the major reasons why I was and have been a success is people like you, Jim Ziegler, and all the other folks that I've met. Because when you plan it and you start thinking about how to win, there are always going to be those missiles that are distractions, that are going to be headwinds and turbulence and coming at you. Mm-hmm. And you may not see them all, and you may not know how to react to them. Mentors, coaches, consultants, podcasts where you're listening to ideas, key to dealing with those contingencies. So, beware of distractions disguised as opportunities. We have a saying in the military: you plan your flight plan with a micrometer and then carve it with an axe. Meaning, things are going to happen. The weather's not going to be anticipated. Somebody in the formation is going to fall out. You're going to lose an engine. There's going to be an emergency. Things won't be planned. It won't come as you plan. So you have to have your contingencies and feel comfortable with those contingencies before you go. But what happens with a lot of entrepreneurs is they have the plan, and instead of staying disciplined to it, they start going off course. They're the ones that are blowing themselves off course because they're distracted by something that they think is an opportunity, and it diffuses their focus and prevents them from execution. And for example, you could be writing a proposal or coming up with some content, a value proposition, and then bing, 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 your phone rings and it's your spouse asking what you want for dinner. Or your email comes in, and I'm guilty of this, bing, 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 all these crazy distractions, right? Suddenly you're focused, ready to go, and now I've got to take my energy on answering this. And as we well know, and I'm sure you're familiar, and your listeners are, viewers are, you can't truly multitask. You're only doing one thing at a time very, very fast. Mm-hmm. So the thing about flying fighters that I loved was total presence, total, intense, maniacal focus on the task at hand and driving in and being maniacally disciplined in that. Key trait in being an entrepreneur. Carving out time for those distractions. But when you have something that needs to get done and you're planning, writing, developing, going into sales mode for that matter, block everything out. Block a time, say for the next 30 minutes, I'm disciplined to this and I'm not going to be distracted by those things. And I think it'll help you as well. And then the last thing with distractions disguised as opportunities is the low-hanging fruit that we often have. Going for maybe a speaking engagement or trying to close that sale, that's the easy low-hanging fruit, but it's not going to be the lever point that will elevate you to where you need to be. And because time is such a commodity, our most precious resource, we have to be extremely disciplined in going for the big lever points, the big things that will truly multiply our business, not just get the sale, but build the business and advance the profits and revenue, not just put a paycheck in your bank account.
So if someone's looking at all these opportunities and we go look at the so-called low-hanging fruit,
Right.
How does someone weigh them to find out where's the biggest lever going to be?
Okay, this goes back to that story. What happened in that story, that the fighter, the jets that were flying, by the way, that's the analogy to beware of distractions, they were taking out a strategic target, a big bridge that was going to truly move the momentum in that war, a bridge. And as they're flying out there, they pass over troops in contact. They may pass over fuel depot, other things that they could roll in and take out. But their job that day was to take out the bridge, the big strategic target. And the young wingman who was flying with Colonel Robin Olds, it was a fore ship, and he called out some enemy aircraft that were in the air. And long story short, the young wingman wanted to go after those aircraft. The distraction, and Colonel Olds said, no, we got to press to the target. That's our strategic initiative. And they blew off that target, that distraction, and went in on the target. Now, back to the low-hanging fruit, etc. The low-hanging fruit can be that those unaware aircraft that you could just go turn, point, shoot, expend a resource, expend money, expend focus, and then get back on target. Or stay focused and doing everything you can to go for that low-hanging or the high-hanging fruit, like the big revenue differentiators. And we have to make sure that we're not blowing off target and going for those. Now, here's the kicker. Sometimes when the enemy starts pointing at you and they become a factor, and you're like, we've got it now, they're aware of us, they could potentially shoot us down. Now I have to go from survival mode, or from winning mode, which is taking out targets, to survival mode. And there are times when you have to focus on surviving and not focus on winning.
Things in the moment to be able to take care of, so that way you can continue on to the journey where you're focused on.
Yes. Now, and then we could talk about this for a while because it spins off into other things. That's why we have assistants. Take care of that target. That's why we have technology. I can't do all this stuff. How do I automate it? Boom, I leverage a technology. That takes care of those things. But then other times, you as the entrepreneur leader, you have to figure out, when is it strategic for me to go from winning mode to survival mode? And here's another quote for you before I forget it. Survivors focus on threats. Winners focus on targets.
I want to close a loop. So they had this target, they had the bridge.
Yeah.
The one guy, the airman, wanted to take out the target. The general said, no, focus in on the target. When he got back, what message did he get on why he was supposed to continue on to that target?
Okay, good. We always debrief every mission. Key thing for any fighter pilot entrepreneur: after you close a deal or lose one, figure out how it worked. When you execute your plan, if putting on a roof of a house, delivering a speech, or engaging a consulting assignment, how did it go? What do we do right? What do we do wrong? Listen to your client, your prospect even, and find out how to grow, and maybe revise your training. But during that debrief, when the fighter pilots were in that room, it came time to the number 4 aircraft. We always use positions, not names, because we don't want it to be personal, because we take off our gloves and go big time, raw and honest. And we will piss you off and you may cry, right? I mean, it's serious. I don't know, fighter pilots don't cry, but it's intense. So the number 4 aircraft said, "Sir, we saw those enemy aircraft on our nose. We easily could have shot them down. They were low, they were unaware of us. Why didn't we go after them?" And he said, "Number 4, first of all, I saw those aircraft 10 miles before you even saw them. But what you didn't see was the enemy 4 ship of aircraft at our right, 5 o'clock, in our blind spot, in the sun, hidden where we couldn't see him, waiting for us to roll in on the decoy so they can go in behind us and shoot us down." It was a very common tactic. As the full bird colonel, the flight lead, his job, his experience, his position of authority, his CEO position, knew his environment. He knew the tactics. That young airman, the assistant, right, the new hire, didn't see the big picture, and so he had to coach him and tell him to stay on target. And some people will pull you off and make you think you have to go to this distraction when they don't see the big picture. Case in point, or the ultimate point is, as the entrepreneur, as a leader, as a squadron commander and flight lead of your squadron, of your business, you have to know these variables, ultimately make the right calls, have the strategic partners to build that situational awareness so you can then act accordingly, take out your bridges, and grow your biz.
Strategy versus tactics.
Yeah.
You know, tactical implementation is important. However, tactical implementation without strategy is where you get a lot of things done, but it's not moving you in any kind of direction.
Yeah, right. That's what we call all thrust and no vector. Right? I've got all the fighter pilot analogies. Right?
I love that one.
Yeah.
Before let's go into this. Let's talk about fear. I remember we were hanging out with my son about a decade ago, and you were talking about fear, and you have a different acronym for it. And so I'd like you to talk about that, and also how do you overcome fear? I mean, you have a really interesting story where you were in the plane, all of a sudden you were in the F-16, and all of a sudden claustrophobia came across you. Right. Can you talk about how, when you're in the middle of something, you have no alternative to go forward, but then that natural fear of, oh my gosh, the self-sabotaging fear of success that so many people have.
Sure.
I can almost see that as an analogy in how you work through it. I think it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, so long story short, for those that don't know, 3 years into my flying career, I almost died in a scuba diving accident, had PTSD. And for salespeople, by the way, that's post-traumatic sales disorder. We get that when we lose a sale. But post-traumatic stress disorder, it wasn't from a combat mission, it was from almost dying scuba diving. And it essentially brought out this latent, unaware claustrophobia that I didn't think I ever had. And so when I flew, I would get these claustrophobic panic attacks. And it used to interfere a little bit with my flying, but I had a tactic and a tool and know how to overcome it. And I was still able to execute on that fear and still hit the target, still perform my job, unbeknownst to my wingman, to the rest of the squadron. But just as a disclaimer, if it did impact my ability to stay safe, hit the target, and be a good wingman, it was my responsibility to turn in these wings and do something else, which, by the way, I had him in my hand quite a few times saying, I don't want to have to deal with that panic and fear again. It was very, very traumatic for me. Just like I think many entrepreneurs say, I'm done, I'm throwing in the towel, and I'm just working for corporate America. I can't deal with it. Constant struggle. So the more I dealt with it, the more resilient I became, the more I didn't quit, the more confident I became, the more skilled that I became at just dealing with the fears and the missiles and 8-hour night combat missions in a tiny little cockpit. So rather than go into all the detail on the panic, I had a secret weapon, a few of them. Number one was, by the way, you mentioned the acronym. Fear, focus, and it was forget everything and run. People have heard that before. But the other one was focus, energy, accept responsibility. Focus, energy, accept responsibility. Accept the responsibility that you made a decision to your family, to your kids, to your clients, that I'm going solo with my team, right? I'm flying in the aircraft by myself, but I've got my wingman. I am fully committed to this entrepreneur mission that I'm on. Accept that responsibility, which trumps passion. Mm-hmm. And any parent listening knows that when you love your kids and love something greatly, you think of your responsibility to them, not because it feels good to change diapers and suffer, right? Because you know it's your responsibility. So I became so focused on my wingmen, backing them up, teaching them. I was an instructor pilot for a while. As long as I was focused on teaching and getting out of my own head and realizing that you needed me on this mission, Dave, as long as I was focused on backing you up, taking care of you, being your wingman, I wasn't distracted with the biggest distraction there is many times, which is this, our own nugget. Mm-hmm. And so servant leadership, excellence was a byproduct of that. And I became a really good instructor. You know, I was thinking about that if you look over there at that wooden plaque to the left by the light switch, it says Flight Leader of the Quarter. That's the most positive gift I have in this room. It's the best reward or award that I ever had. The #1 instructor pilot out of all my fighter buddies, they chose me as the flight lead that they want to go to battle with.
That's cool.
Now, we all have fears and passions and doubts and insecurities and all that stuff that threaten to hold us back. But how do we deal with it? Are we focused on serving our client? Are we focused on the outcome of winning, landing your jet saying, I did it, I defeated the missiles, but the most important enemy there is, my insecurities and doubts. And that's what helped me grow this passion and resilience and credibility when I'm talking to guys like you or any of the entrepreneurs out there. If I can overcome claustrophobia and panic attacks at 30,000 feet on an 8-hour night combat mission, then I think anybody can do anything.
Well, let's talk about entrepreneurship, because I believe you're quite the entrepreneur.
Yeah.
You're in the top 1% of all public speakers, and there's so many people that come to me and saying, hey, I want to become a public speaker. I just want to be able to get myself out there. And they believe that they can all of a sudden overnight become a high six-figure speaker just because they have a good story. They had a good TED Talk. They have a good book. And I know, and you know, it takes a lot of strategy. It takes a lot of work. What advice would you give someone who's just starting out, or that's a goal, dream, or desire of theirs?
So first and foremost, be the best at delivering the content that you have. If the end result is you delivering a speech on a platform for 1 hour, then that's the engine of your business. That's truly the driver of your business. It's literally the engine in the car. Without a great engine, I don't care about the color or the paint scheme, the quality of the rims and tires. I need a great engine, and that's the fundamental. Create that, build it, the best that you possibly can. Get coaching, be around others, get some mentorship and guidance, put in the hard work, right? You got, like you said, get a mini MBA. Because what's hard, though, of being an entrepreneur in business as a speaker or an architect or whatever it is that you're doing, is the left brain, right brain challenge. The creative to the tactical, to the speech giver and philosopher and motivator, to the one that can cold call and execute a sales plan and utilize CRM, that's customer relationship management, which a lot of people may not even know. Leveraging tools and technologies, how to come up with a contract, right? Most speakers may be good at what they do on the platform with an amazing story. However, they fail at the business of business. Marketing, branding. I wore this flight suit for a reason. This is my brand. Wingman, wingmans, wing givers, wing nuts, right? Push it up, check 6, chair fly.
Am I a wing nut?
Yeah, sometimes, right? And my book, Never Fly Solo, and in my speeches, I created this language. I got a glossary of terms at the end of my book. That's my brand, which has evolved. And I have a distinct brand that some people love, however, some people don't. And you've got to build, as a speaker, as a brand, as you develop your content, a unique, viable brand that's different and, as I like to say, mint chocolate chip in a vanilla chocolate world, right? And I know Sally Hogshead uses that as well, but I created it before her. But she didn't steal it from me, but it's common now. Be mint chocolate chip. Be mocha almond fudge, strawberry swirl, whatever your flavor is. Be different. And some people will love that flavor, some people won't. And so that's really, really important. Don't try to be, the good speaker that's kind of general and offering all these platitudes and philosophies that a lot of other people have heard. Share your claustrophobia, panic attacks, cut a vein. And so that's kind of like on the content piece, but the key to building it, once again, and we could talk more about it, is to understand branding, marketing, sales, technology, building a team. That's where the challenge is.
Let's talk about team.
Yeah.
So I remember when I was getting started. I remember when you had already started. You were still not where you are today. How do you build my book, I talk a lot about collaboration, because together, when you assemble a team of people that can collaborate together and you get people with their strengths, you can sort of assemble your team. And they don't have to actually work for you. They can be friends, they can be associates, they can be mentors. What advice do you have for someone on how to assemble that team, or to find the people that they could strategically partner and work with?
So one of the biggest challenges and is finding the right contractors, the right folks to work with. We've got our wingman here filming this, our web designers, our social media experts. You can't do it all on your own, otherwise you'll be working 22.5-hour days, which I've done a couple times, and we all have. And so you've got to kiss a couple frogs. And you have to ask some experts on what they do on attracting some really good talent. What are their interview processes? How do you define a great vendor partner? And you've got to gain some experience. It's hard to find the right person. And you may find, for example, a graphic designer that's pretty good, or a videographer that's solid. And then you realize, though, that your definition of solid and good is not really the definition of the next level speaker, or the next level entrepreneur who's using video and marketing in a totally different way. Mm-hmm. So exposure is key. Get out of your aircraft. You may be in your own squadron, but that's why joining different associations, going to conferences where you're being exposed to different ideas, tools, networking with folks, and learning best-in-class practices so you can find them when they pop up. And also, when the more people you meet, I call you up, and went through some assistants in the past. Hey, David, I'm looking for another assistant. I need web designer. We've actually worked together. So having your team of wingmen who you've built relationships with, who you've helped, who you've nurtured, not just asked for help and picked brains, which I can't stand that term, right? You massage their ego. You connect with them. You have a heart-to-heart connection. Then they'll keep the radar sweep of you. So I always am one phone call away from my next vendor partner, from some other folks that I can collaborate with to grow my business and expose myself to greater talent and ideas.
Mm-hmm. So where do you go to learn?
So multiple ways. I have a saying, number one, make your mentors your friends and your friends your mentors. Make your mentors your friends and your friends your
That's
mentors.
good.
You are a mentor to mine as well as a friend. So I go to you for great ideas. When I talked to you just last week, I was on my iPhone. I started taking notes. I'm like, okay, you're telling me stuff about ClickFunnels and this and that. So who are you hanging out with on the weekends?
Important.
Right?
The sum total of the 6 people you hang out with the most.
Bingo. And you want people that are lifting you up, emulating excellence, not dragging you down. Key component on building a life of success, not just a business. Also, I've hired coaches before. I've hired a gentleman, Dan Sullivan, out of Toronto.
Strategic coach.
Yeah, strategic coach. $25,000 I paid. I wrote the check. It was the most I've ever paid for anything, other than software development that wound up taking a poop and didn't do anything with. Right? We all lost
I know
the money.
that story as well.
I mean, hundreds of thousands of dollars, but. And so I wrote that check, and it was great. Now I'm in a mini mastermind group with some people that I met there. By the way, entrepreneur, if you're not willing to stroke a check equal to or greater than the check that you expect to be written to you, you're not ready for prime time.
I agree.
Be willing to write that check. Invest. Doesn't mean you're not going to make some mistakes along the way. So I got some coaching there. and then I invest in other speaker coaches, and then the biggest biggest place I go to are podcasts. I buy books all the time. I'm in the gym. I'm listening to David Goggins or other thought leaders, Seth Godin, coming up with ideas. The ideas are the tools that are available to you when you have a challenge. And if you're not open and receptive to feedback from mentors and coaches, from friends who may bruise your ego, if you're not open to the ideas that you're listening to, if you're just so myopic and say, I know what needs to get done, I'm not open, I'm doing it the right way, sure path to eventual failure. And it may be a slow, insidious descent to irrelevance, but if you keep going like this for a while, you're eventually going to hit rock bottom. So, multiple ways to do it, and I'm intentional about it. I read every morning. I did a little meditation today. I just try to expose myself to that next idea, the next paradigm shift, to help me succeed.
Very cool. Now, us sitting here next to each other is an example, I believe, of the right people are going to show up in your life at the right time.
Right.
You just don't know it unless you're open to it. And we were both flying. Back then I was a platinum, so we were flying in first class out to Vegas. I think I was in 4D, which is where I usually like to be, the last row in first class when I flew there. And I had a ritual. I put on my headphones, my noise canceling headphones. I'd be there right to myself. I wouldn't even acknowledge or talk to people next to me, except all of a sudden, you ever feel like someone's just sitting there staring at you? Well, I'm sitting here, and all of a sudden, I look up and you're looking at me. And then I'd look up and you're looking at me. So finally, I take off my headphones and I said, "Hi, I'm Dave." And you said, "Hi, I'm Waldo." And we both were from Atlanta, same age, and a friendship ensued because of that. And so I say this. I mean, I remember the day like it was yesterday.
Same here.
I still have the picture.
So funny.
We took a selfie of each other back then. And the fact of the matter is, you mentioned that I've been a mentor of you as well as a friend. The same goes for you with me. Both personally and professionally. Yeah. And the thing I want to tell people is, you never know who's going to show up in your life. And the learning lesson from that, for me anyway, was always introduce myself to the person next to me. Say hi. You never know who that person could be, and how even something that you could impart during that small little conversation could change their lives. Mm-hmm. So thank you for that long stare. So what's next for Waldo? What's your we're one of the things I'm looking at. We're in 2020, and my strategic planning for my company, because we're in a new decade, was a decade worth of planning. Then I put it back to 5 years. Then I put it to 1 year. And I created the plan on how we're going to attack this year in order to achieve our goal, which is huge. For us, it's 10xing. Yeah. What's next for you?
So, and first of all, and feelings mutual, by the way, you have to, be open to relationships. You have to be willing to say, there's something I could learn from everybody that I meet. And it could be about a life issue, or it could be about something else, right? So bottom line is, when you're receptive to it, when you're receptive to those people and don't have blinders on, ideas can come. But you have to be intentional every single day, and things will show up. But intentionality is the key. So for me, it's a paradigm shift. We're both the same age. I've got, my son turns 9 years old today. I love being a wing dad. I love watching and growing and being a parent. Watching him grow, and then helps me to grow. And then I'm very, happily married, and I love traveling. But for me, it's about leverage. I've been doing this 16 and a half, almost 17 years, on the road 70 to 80 times a year. It's hard being away from him and my family. And so for me, I have an online leadership platform called ACE, which stands for Accountability, Commitment, and Execution. Notice the branding, folks. How are you branding your entrepreneur business? And so I've been selling that. It's my content, unbundled 52 3 to 5 minute videos that I can share with people. It's an extra value add. Mm-hmm. And so I want to do more on the B2B side, and I want to partner with companies who will be able to sell that as an added value. Number two, I also want to create a military summit of other military speakers. Kind of, I won't go into detail there, but of high level military type of summit. I have a nonprofit called the Wingman Foundation, so I give money every year, a couple times a year, to other folks who are hurting. So I believe in that philanthropy. And then also, because I coach speakers informally, I want to eventually be a marketing and sales speaker coach. It's called, I have already created Top Gun Speaker. I've got some videos created, a website. And so I want to do some on-site live coaching, two-day seminars, and then one-on-one with the Wingman. You can see my office here. I'm pretty open book. And I have specific detailed operations on how I run a 7-figure business and have sustained that for the last basically 8 years or so. So being a speaker coach is really, really important to me as well. And then last and not least, building a military speakers bureau. I coach a lot of military speakers, and I refer a lot of military speakers. I know the business of speaking, nurturing sales and relationships and contracts and follow-up. Why don't I be the best military speaker agent in the world? And that is something that I see myself doing. That is on my radar, and I just got to figure out how to stay focused without getting distracted by too many items.
Yeah.
And so that's next. I've got money in the bank, but it's all about quality of life and then leveraging the next level. So that's what's exciting to me right now. And then working on my next book as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being here, and thank you for sharing, Waldo. I certainly appreciate it.
It's an honor.
Mine. It's all mine. Thank you.
Yeah.